This is Elena from Birth High, and today I'm talking with Mara Bentschneider about her identical twin birth. Mara's water broke just shy of 33 weeks, and she went on to deliver both boys vaginally 36 minutes apart.
Hey, I'm Mara Bentschneider, and I am currently living in Jackson, Michigan. I was born and raised here, spent some time in some other areas, and then moved back home. I have two children, which was not the original plan because it happened at the same time. They are identical twin boys.
Oh, that is so sweet. Well, we are
Yeah,
going to get into your story today. So if you want to start by taking me back to what getting pregnant looked like for you.
perfect. So, my husband and I got engaged in the summer of 2019. Which, if you recall, was normal and everything was smooth and there was no COVID at all. And then, as we're planning this wedding, we came across this huge pandemic that just kind of changed everything for everyone in different ways. And one way for us was taking a wedding from 400 to 50 people. We had the decision to either kind of postpone, but we knew that we wanted to start our family sooner rather than later. And so we didn't. We went through with the wedding like as planned. We feel like there were two types of people. There were the ones that didn't care about the date as much and kind of wanted the whole event to be the same. And then there were the ones that wanted the date and wanted to do it. So we made it smaller and we did that. And thankfully we did, because just a couple months later, we decided that we were kind of ready to start moving in that direction and trying to have a baby. And within 2 months, we found out we were pregnant. We found out we were pregnant in the very first morning we moved into our new home. So we've never been in this house without our boys, which is really special for us. We were kind of like I was late and I kind of knew I had never really been late before. So I was like, I just know that this is what it is, which is kind of funny because I had a lot of intuition during my pregnancy. And we were like, we'll take the test in the morning. And at 4 a.m., we both shot out of bed and we were like, we're ready right now. So I'm very fortunate to not have had a lot of help. It was just really natural and it was definitely meant to be for us. As soon as I took the test, within minutes, it was as dark as the line could be, which I didn't think anything of. But after sending it to one specific friend who had gone through a lot of IVF and I had a lot of conversations with, she was like, I bet you're having twins. And I just laughed it off at first. And then I was really tired. Like within those first couple of weeks, it was almost unbearable. I was going to bed at like 5:30 p.m. because I just couldn't keep my eyes open. I was also a teacher. So, I mean, that kind of adds into it, obviously. But I texted another friend who had twins previously. And I was like, what were your like main symptoms when you first found out? Like, what were you experiencing? And she was like, just overwhelming fatigue. And so I started to joke and tell people like, it might be twins. I mean, and by people, I mean like my mom. Like we only told a small amount of people at first. And I kind of like tossed the idea around with my husband. Like, I just have this weird feeling. Um, I don't know. And so we went in for our first appointment and it was the first time we'd like been to the OB. I hadn't met her before. We chose St. Joseph Mercy out of Ypsilanti. And I had a friend who had seen Dr. Bagash, which is who we chose to go see, and highly recommend. She was wonderful. And we went in and she said, is this your first pregnancy? And we answered all the questions. And she asked my husband if he like would get faint at all, like just looking at anything ultrasound, like if he was just queasy. And I said, he'll only pass out if you tell him it's 2. And within a minute, she grabbed my arm and just said, oh my God, it's 2. And sure enough, there were twins. And that was just like the start of an even crazier journey, because then we had already told some people we were pregnant. So now we were telling them it was with twins, and that was just like wild. So that was kind of the beginning.
Oh
which,
my gosh. Wow. What
yeah,
an amazing start to your pregnancy.
yes. And like I said, like it was all very smooth, and I can look back at that now and like be relieved with that. But I know that not everyone has that. And so I totally just want to respect those things as well.
Totally. Yeah. Wow. So how did you select this OB and get involved with this practice in the first place?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I live in Jackson, so Ypsilanti is about a 45-minute drive from us. It was nothing against any hospital here. It was just both of my sister-in-laws had gone to St. Joe to deliver. So I already was kind of looking that way just from having conversations with them and knowing that the care was good. A lot of times, if I would hear anything about doctors in town, it was just so mixed that it kind of felt like I just wanted to remove myself and start fresh with someone I had really not any knowledge of. And the way that they did it at St. Joe, and I think they do this at a lot of places, is I kind of saw a lot of the doctors in the office just in case. She wasn't even there for the delivery, and she was there for part of it. But it was long, so she was not there for all of it. But we'll get to that. So I really just selected her based on like someone told me that this is who they saw. I went in and I really liked her right off the bat. She felt like someone I could really talk to. And for me, that was huge. She was a little bit younger. So I definitely asked the questions after finding out that it was twins. Like, was she comfortable with this kind of pregnancy? Because there are three different types of twin pregnancies. There is di-di, which is separate sac and separate placenta. And then there's modi, which is the same placenta, but two separate sacs. And then there's momo, which is you share everything. And momo is the most dangerous. And it's like the least percentage of what twins are. And then modi is still, it could be pretty risky because you share the placenta. So they have to monitor the nutrients and that the twins are both getting the same things. And then die is essentially having two individual pregnancies, but just at the same time. And I had modi. So it wasn't like the most dangerous, but it was still something to be monitored and watched. So I just wanted to make sure she was comfortable, and she definitely said that she was. And I saw her like every 4 weeks, like I think after that, after finding out they were twins.
Okay. And so how far along were you when you went in for your first appointment?
I was 8 weeks when I went in for my first appointment.
Okay. Okay, great.
So
So, yeah, then kind of getting into the rest of your pregnancy, what symptoms did you feel? How, was your mental state? All of that.
yeah, so I really truly had a smooth pregnancy, and I was shocked mostly because in the past I've had a lot of anxiety, especially around my health for no reason at all, really, just like maybe my Grey's Anatomy like mind triggered different things in my head. I don't know. And so I was a little bit worried that I would be anxious through a lot of my pregnancy. And I truly, once I found out it was twins, I'm a type A, like total control. I want to know everything. I all of a sudden felt this like relief, and that I didn't have any control. I had no idea what was going to happen. And I kind of just had to take it day by day. And so my mindset kind of shifted, and it wasn't about me and my health and my body anymore as much as it was about like keeping it safe for them and them being healthy. And that, so I kind of did the opposite of what I thought it would. And it was really nice for me. I didn't have a lot of morning sickness. Um, I was relatively like active. I taught through 32 weeks, and I coached volleyball through all of that. I was thankful to have like my summer off as a teacher because that was kind of like that trimester too. So I could get a lot done and I had a lot more energy. Um, but then yeah, it became a lot to carry. And so I was going to appointments. So I saw maternal fetal medicine every other week. And then, which was also in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area. So again, a 45-minute drive every time. And then I saw Bagash my just regular OB every 4 weeks. So I was driving there 3 times a month, and that was if I didn't have blood work or I didn't have like other things to also get done. So with teaching in the beginning, that was difficult because I was also having to figure out how can I take this time off to get to these appointments. So it was all just kind of stressful, but again, health-wise, I was okay. Um, I'm just trying to think of like, I don't remember ever feeling like I never had cramping. I didn't have the bleed, like I didn't spot or anything like that. And that was really calming for me as well, just because I knew with twins, like I didn't want to celebrate huge at first because you just never know. And that's true with any pregnancy. But for whatever reason, this just felt like even more risky because it is, I guess. But we definitely told the people that were like close to us and in our circle because we wanted to celebrate no matter what. And we would have done the opposite with them had that happened as well. But yeah, we just kind of took it day by day, and mentally, I think we did okay. And, you know, just is an interesting situation to be in when you're not expecting it at all because identical twins, um, it's like a total fluke. It's not genetic. There's like not really any like rhyme or reason. I know that like chances can increase if you are like a little bit older or if you use IVF or if you use some type of fertility or anything like that, I think, but this was just out of nowhere.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
So did you, going into this pregnancy or during your pregnancy, have like any hopes of how that you wanted your delivery to go?
So after we found out that they were twins and that I mean they grew like with every appointment they were doing what they needed to do. So we kind of just left the expectations really low. I knew I wanted a natural delivery if it was what was best for all of us. I knew that I wanted like vaginal delivery if it was best for all of us. I think that's to a point kind of what most people hope for. It's just what your body is going to do naturally. Um, I didn't end up with a natural. I had an epidural, and that was just what was best for me at that time. I was probably 50 or 60 pounds heavier than I had been just from carrying them. And that is like the fluid, my ankles were so swollen. I was already uncomfortable. And then on top of that, like the weight of the boys in my stomach and then just the contractions, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go for the epidural and I'm just gonna get some sleep because I knew that it was gonna be a while after that before I had any more. Um, so again, I felt like the fewer expectations we had with any of it, just the smoother it would kind of go.
Okay. And did you guys end up doing a gender reveal or find out or anything like that?
We did find out. We did like the early testing, the genetic testing, mostly because we wanted to verify that they were identical twins, or I don't think they could have been fraternal twins because they were modi, but we just wanted to like make sure everything was okay and everything was good. And we did the gender with that. So
Yeah.
I already had this weird feeling, one, that I was pregnant, then that it was twins. And I just had a weird feeling that it was boys. So we had previously posted an announcement, like our baby announcement, that it was twins with footballs, which we're big football fans. My husband's a football coach. So it wasn't for that reason, but I think everyone kind of already thought that we were having boys. So we didn't do like any official gender reveal or anything, but just posted again on social media that just to confirm that they were boys.
Aw,
Yes.
great. Well, is there anything else about your pregnancy that you want to touch on before we kind of get into what the final weeks looked like for you?
I don't like nothing specific. I guess the big thing for me as like a twin pairing mother was like I needed to have my bags packed. I needed to have things done in the house. So I really like by 20 weeks, which is really early, but like by 20 weeks, I was already making a list of what I needed in that bag. And I was already making a list of like what needed to get done so that the nursery was complete. And I don't mean complete in like, this is absolutely happening, nothing could go wrong, but just like I needed things in order at least a little bit. Um, and so everything was pretty much ready by like 26 weeks,
Wow.
um, because we just didn't know when they would come. Um, I love the month of October. And so for whatever reason, they were due. So December 2nd was my original due date. If it was one, but they don't let twins go past like 37, 38 weeks. So they were never going to let me go past November 11th. But I, from the beginning, told people that they would be here by Halloween.
Mhm.
And sure enough,
All right, so let's get into it then. So, what
yeah.
did kind of those final weeks look like for you?
So I was teaching. I started the school year large and attempting to be in charge of second graders. Um, I was coaching volleyball. I was the JV volleyball coach at the high school that I taught at. And I was just kind of continuing on as everything was normal. And then it kind of hit me that I felt like I needed to slow down. I didn't like my ankles were extremely swollen and I never had any like preeclampsia. I didn't have high blood pressure or anything like that, but like you could tell that I was on my feet way more than I should have been. And now looking back at pictures, I'm like, why didn't anyone stop me? Or maybe they tried and I just was too bullheaded to listen. I don't know. But um, yeah, so up until I finally talked to the doctor at like 30 weeks or 28 to 30 weeks. And I was like, I don't think I can go past 32 weeks teaching. Like I can't be on my feet for that long. And so she was like, yep, sure enough, I'll write you a note. This is what we need to do. And so that way it all kind of went into the maternity leave FMLA. Um, but I had a hard time with that at first because I didn't want to take time away before they were even here. But my body needed to. So Friday, October like 5th, 4th would have been my last day teaching. You know, I said goodbye to my students. I made sure all of my lesson plans were ready. I connected with another teacher to make sure she was taking care of everything. And I was ready to have like this month basically to get everything prepared and just rest. Um, I was still going to continue to coach because it was only like 2 hours versus a full day and then coaching. So I went to practice Monday, Tuesday, and we had a big game Wednesday. It was senior night. And so I had all the boards, I had everything in my car for the seniors. I was washing bottle parts, like, you know, you get the sample bottle. So it's like 50 different nipples and 50 different like tubes that go inside for the colic, and all these parts and pieces are all over my counter. I'm like, okay, I really need to get to volleyball. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Oh wait, no, that's not true. I had an appointment, a virtual appointment with the doctor, and they were like, everything looks great. We're gonna move forward. We're gonna schedule you for like 36, 37-week induction just to be safe. And I was like, awesome. I called my husband. This is like 1:30 in the afternoon. I called my husband and I was like, hey, we're good. Like, just kind of be prepared for those like November dates. Think about it with work, make sure. And he was like, okay, awesome. So I was like packing up the car and I was like, I'm just going to go to the bathroom one more time. And as soon as I sat down to go to the bathroom, um, I heard a pop. And I was like, oh, maybe my back. Like, I just didn't know if it was just like a normal, like my spine was adjusted. I don't know. And I stood up and I never really stopped peeing from there. I mean, obviously not peeing, but I was just like leaking fluid at that point. So I was kind of like wobbling around the house, like, what do I do here? Thankfully, my neighbor across the street had had a baby a month before, and she brought me all of her like postpartum like diapers and that kind of stuff. And so I had those in the bathroom. So I put one of those on and I'm trying to like, I don't even know, find my phone. And I called my husband and I was like, change of plans. You need to get home right now. And he's like, what? And I'm like, my water broke. He's like, okay, I gotta stop and get gas. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I know that we have time, but also like get home. And so he did. And someone had to come and get all the volleyball stuff. And it was just very out of the blue. And this was at 32 plus 6 weeks. So a
Oh my
little
gosh.
a little earlier than we had thought or planned or hoped or any of it. So
Wow, what a dramatic start to your
it was
labor.
a yeah, it was a little funky. And it's so funny because in movies, the woman's water always breaks. Like that's the telltale sign. But that doesn't happen a lot in like normal day-to-day life. So all of my volleyball players would always be like, your water's gonna break on the court. And it's like, no, that doesn't happen. I literally said that a million times. That's not how it works. Like my water's probably not gonna break. And sure enough, there
Wow.
it was. Yes.
Oh my gosh. All right, so what happened next?
So we went to the hospital, which it takes 45 minutes to get there. And with my water breaking, I was a little bit more cautious and concerned just because I know that infection can like happen quickly. And I guess I never really asked the question of like, how long do I have if my water breaks? I was relieved to hear that I had like 24 hours. Obviously, you wouldn't want to wait that long, but I was debating on like, do I need to go to the hospital 10 minutes away or
Mm,
can I make it an hour drive? And like an hour drive was okay because I wasn't having like major contractions or I wasn't in active labor quite yet. It was just what now I believe to have been too much pressure just in my uterus that it just caused it to happen earlier than we thought. So we drove to Ann Arbor or Ipsy, we got checked in, and I continued to just um, you know empty this sack all over people's feet. And the first doctor was like, I gotta go change my pants. It's like, awesome. Thank you for telling me that. Um, but the main goal at first was like keep the babies in. So I was at the beginning planning to like be in there till at least 34 weeks, which would have been like a full week. And so at first we couldn't eat because we weren't sure what was going to happen. And then after they kind of pumped me full of some fluids, they moved us into like an outpatient area basically on labor and delivery. And this poor girl came in next to us and was just ready and like, yelling and going through the pain and feeling it all. And my husband was just like, is this what's about to happen to you? And I was like, yes, get ready. And then he was like, I'm gonna need dinner. And so we texted Stephanie actually. And she brought us Jimmy John's because she lives in Ann Arbor also. And so we had Jimmy John's before once they knew that I didn't need to like do anything immediate right then. So, or so we thought. So they finally moved us into a room. It must have been like 8 or 9. And this all happened around 4. Like we got to the hospital at 4. So it took a little bit. And they pumped us full of fluids and we got comfortable. And I was just kind of like, Joe, figure out what you need to do for work and that kind of stuff. And then we went to sleep in the really comfortable, labor and delivery rooms. He was, I'm sure, pleased to be on the husband chair. Isn't that like a joke that husbands always complain about that chair while their wife is in labor? And around 11:30, I was like kind of feeling it more, like definitely some stronger contractions. And I let the doctors know, and they gave me a little bit more. And I don't even know, like just fluid and like maybe something else. I don't remember at this point. And then around 1 o'clock, I woke him up and I was like, they're coming today. Like this is happening. And so they brought up, I like asked for my epidural at that point because I was dilated to a 6. And so around like 1 a.m., I got an epidural, which that's something. The person who does it dropped the needle like on the floor in front of us. And I was just, you know, not what I just didn't need to see it. It just wasn't something. So we were both a little bit in shock at that point. But I'm grateful that I did that because that is what I felt like I needed to do for me. And there were 5 women in labor who needed it after. So if I wouldn't have done it, like I don't know that I would have been able to, because I progressed pretty quickly from there. I was able to sleep for a little bit longer, but by around like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., I was like definitely feeling it. Um, and my doctor was on call that night. So I was grateful for that. Like it felt very comforting to know that when we were first there and first communicating with someone that she was around and like making sure that everyone else was aware that it was her patient kind of thing. Um, you know, you just see the same person and it's that like sense of security. I don't even know that like qualification wise or skill wise or whatever, if I don't know, you never know. Um, so then around 6 a.m., I was fully dilated and I started pushing and I kept pushing and I kept pushing and I kept pushing. And like in between pushes and in between contractions, my body was falling asleep. They had to actually give me like Sprite or something because I just needed like a little bit of sugar. There's like 6 pictures on my husband's phone of me just like passed out basically in between these 4-minute contract. Like I just needed 1 minute of sleep. And then around 9, they took us into the OR because all twins are delivered in the operating room just in case anything happens. And I ended up, and so then there's a ton of people because I have twins. So first it's my doctors and the nurses, and then it's a NICU team for both sets of babies. And then like there were a couple residents in there watching. And so at this point, we're just like full on anyone welcome, come look, like check it out, do what you got to do, but like get this baby out kind of thing. And so they ended up having to use a vacuum to pull Declan, which is baby A, out. And that was around 9:58. He was born. And so that they took him and I had him for like a second and then they put him in the isolate and made sure he was all good and he was breathing. And like the best thing that happened to us was that those boys did not need any additional like any true additional care. They did have NICU time. They were in the NICU for 10 days, but like they weren't on a they weren't on like a CPAP. They didn't need help eating for longer than like the day that they were born kind of thing. So we were really thankful for that. But they did come in and tell us that Declan was doing great. He has 10 fingers and 11 toes. And we were both like, what? What do you mean? That's like, 10 fingers and 10 toes, your baby. So like, we were just waiting for that. And so for them to say 11 really caught us off guard, but sure enough, he had 11 toes. And then Joe, my husband, went with him for a little bit because Brooks, baby B, his water had not broken. I was not in labor with him at all. And so they had to give me Pitocin and kind of push that through. So, and then ended up having to use the vacuum on him as well. And he was born 36 minutes later. So both vaginal, which I'm very, very thankful for. I feel like the only reason I had any kind of like strength to get Brooks out after all the pushing and all the stuff with Declan was the relief I felt after having Declan. And I feel like that's not something until after you have a baby. Like that's why you can do it. I don't know. It's weird. I feel like you need to know that beforehand, but you just don't. And so yeah, so they pulled him out, same thing. His cord was like wrapped kind of funny, so they didn't like have my husband cut it or anything, but I held him for a second and then they took him. And then they came in and told us that he had 10 fingers and 11 toes. And then it was kind of funky because they went to the NICU and we went back to our labor and delivery room. So there was definitely some like disconnect there, which I didn't fully expect. But again, I didn't have many expectations. So like I didn't let that be a downer. But I do know that like a lot of people planning these pregnancies and like this kind of stuff, or not planning, but like working towards that, like have very strict, like they don't want to be taken away from their baby. They don't want that kind of stuff. And I get that as well. But I don't feel like it, for me, caused any like postpartum separation or depression or anything like that. It wasn't a trigger for me, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, so then 2 babies.
Oh my gosh, wow. So then, what were kind of those first few hours like, and then moving into kind of the rest of your hospital stay?
There was definitely a lot of just like euphoria, like even before seeing the babies. Um, but also we were really nervous, like as first time parents, and now we have these 5-pound babies, like with my husband who has never changed a diaper before, kind of thing. Um, it's nerve wracking, but you're excited and you're ready to get started. But like the pushing on your uterus after and like getting everything out is just like not fully what you expect or like what I planned for. You plan for the baby, but there's so much more to it. Um, and just like decompressing almost, like I pushed for so long, I was starving. Like they were like, "Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this?" And I was like, "All of it. Just bring me all the food. I want the quesadilla. I want the dessert. I want like a cup of coffee. Like I just want everything that you can find. Bring it to me." And then within like 2 hours, we were able to go down and see them, and we knew they were doing okay. Like we had updates and stuff, so that was nice. But it gave me time to just kind of relax for just a second, um, which I was grateful for.
Yeah, wow.
Yes. And then like we spent 10 days total in the NICU. And then really nice thing about St. Joe Hospital is that they turned an old administration building into a hotel for parents who like, or any family member that needs to be close by. And so we ended up staying there for the whole time, which was awesome. And like it's paid day by day, like you don't have to do more than anything, and it's relatively cheap. They make it affordable. So we were right down this, it's a really long hallway, but we were right down the hallway from the babies, which I was able to like actually relax at that point because we didn't have to leave them like fully to come back to Jackson, because at that point, I mean, we were 45 minutes away, so that would have been harder. And then I was in mother and baby for 2 nights. 2 nights. But that's different too. And I don't know how, I don't have anything to compare it to, but like our baby wasn't in there. And so while I was getting checked on, it just didn't feel the same. Like I wasn't getting, and I don't think it's anyone's fault, but like I wasn't getting the like help of like, this is how you nurse and this is how you do that. I mean, if I went into the NICU, the nurses there were wonderful, but it wasn't in my like own comfort. It was in this big
Mm-hmm.
room with all these people and that kind of thing. So that was a little bit different. I can't say it was like better or worse because I don't have anything to compare it to, like I said, but we just didn't have that like bassinet in our room with our baby kind of thing. So, and then we only stayed in the NICU for that long because if a baby has any kind of like needs any kind of breathing support or like any help, like a reminder to breathe, it's an automatic 7-day like reset. And so Brooks needed just like a little stimulation, like, hey buddy, like take a breath. And so that kind of like reset our clock. So we ended up like really kind of pushing to keep both of them there because that was my one thing. I really didn't want to take one home before the other. And since they were both doing so well, it worked out. So, yeah.
So how did you feel physically during that time, with your own recovery after delivery?
Honestly, I felt pretty good. And truly, I really trusted the NICU and I really trusted the nurses, and we decided to take that time to like learn. We knew that they needed to be there, like they were doing everything that they could. So we learned from them and we watched them, and they gave them the bath. And so the anxiety of bringing home these newborn 5-pound babies kind of like went away. I mean, obviously there were still scares and there were still things, but we just were able to like really soak up all of their knowledge from these nurses. And on top of that, I was pumping every 3 hours, but we let them handle the nighttime feeds because I wasn't nursing. I was bottle feeding at this point because I didn't really have anything. And so they were using some borrowed milk from the NICU and some of what I was like some of my colostrum and stuff. But they did the night feed so that my husband and I could get a little bit of sleep. So I was truly able to recover probably more than a lot of people are, um, minus the waking up to pump. But that's a whole nother adventure.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about the feeding then. So kind of what did, your initial feeding look like in those very first, few hours even, and then how did that transform over the time you were at the NICU?
Yeah, I definitely had all like full intentions of like nursing and pumping occasionally. And I liked the idea of pumping because I liked knowing how much they were getting, especially with them being like preemie. And so I wasn't unsuccessful with nursing. I just didn't feel like I needed to do it. And so we just started bottle feeding because I knew that I wanted my husband to be able to do the bottles, and I knew that I wanted him to be a part of it, and I knew that I needed the help because I needed to be able to sleep too, because that is where my mental health would have gone to shit if I was not getting the sleep. And that's for both of us too. Like that our communication would just totally have faltered. Like we needed the routine. And so the NICU kind of put us on that right away. Um, they started doing not in the first couple of days. They did have a feeding tube, like the nose one. I can't think of what it's called. EG tube or something like that for like 24 hours, I think. So at first it was that, and then they ended up taking bottles. And my supply came in within like 3 or 4 days because I was pumping with the hospital grade pump, like round the clock every 2 to 3 hours. And we would spend the whole day with them. Um, they start out taking the normal like 2 milliliters and then it goes up and then it goes up. And I started pumping that much and then it went up and then it went up. And I pumped for 15 months. So
Wow. Oh my
it
gosh.
was a long time. And I was a massive overproducer for a really long time too. I was pumping like 80 ounces a day. So
Oh my gosh.
I know it's it's wild. So I was thankful to be able to do that. Like my body just was supposed to have these boys. So
Oh, wow, I like got goosebumps.
yeah, yeah.
Aw. Okay, so then what did, kind of end of NICU stay and transitioning to life at home with the family of four look like?
You know, it's interesting. It's still interesting to this day. They're wild, but they weren't at first. I mean, they're very calm mannered, like definitely take after when the nurses in the hospital say that they can tell right away what a baby is going to kind of be like, they're right. Like it's wild. You can just kind of see. So when we first came home, leaving the NICU was a little bit stressful just because we're bringing all of this stuff home and all of this knowledge home, and we're bringing them into a place that has never had a baby in it before. So, I mean, they can't move yet, but still, you're still thinking about is it appropriate for them? And is there a place that they can do this or nap and that kind of stuff? And so just figuring out that part of it. Um, it's stressful. And like getting in the car with a baby for the first time is stressful. Like having my husband drive home, I'm like trying to comfortably sit in the seat. And there's two of them. It was wild. Um, but we got home, and for the next 7 weeks, they slept all the time. Like, and I think that it is because they were 7 weeks early, like that was still their gestational time of like catching up and being sleepy. And then after that, like their sleep was like everywhere. Um, it happens really quickly. Like one night they're doing something and you think you're like golden, and the next night you don't sleep at all. And I think that that is just on repeat forever and ever. Amen.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So you were obviously on maternity leave at this time. How long did you have, and what about your husband?
So I think he got like 1 week off, and then he took another 2 weeks of vacation. But he didn't really have like a paternity leave, unfortunately. I took my 12 weeks of maternity leave as a teacher, and then I actually, with them being preemies and with COVID still being like not in full swing, but in swing in general, um, I ended up taking a leave of absence through the end of my school year. Um, and then I still wasn't ready to go back, so I am now currently a stay-at-home mom, which is wonderful and insanely hard at the same time, um, as like just parenting in general is. But yeah, so that was just kind of the route that we felt we needed to take.
Okay.
It was hard. It's hard to justify sometimes, as a teacher, like going and spending time with other kids, and that's how I felt, like not my own kids. And then like salary wise, it's not like, teaching is not at the top of the totem pole. I'll say that.
Yeah. Wow. So did you guys have other support nearby, family, friends that you could lean on during that time?
Yes, definitely. We have family very close. So my mom lives like 5 minutes away. My mother-in-law lives right down the road. All three of our sisters and their husbands, and their kids are in town. I have a lot of friends still in town. So, and then the friends that I don't have were still like super supportive, via text or sending. Joey's, my husband's aunts made and mom like made us dinner for months. I mean, like just delivered us dinner for months. It was wonderful. That would be like my number one thing. Don't get me a gift. Don't get me anything. But if you just bring me food, like I don't have to plan it. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to get the groceries for it. I don't even care what it is. But just like bring someone a dinner, like highly recommend.
Oh, that is wonderful. Wow.
Yes. So we try and pay that forward as much as we can.
Yeah, wow. So then how did, kind of the rest of your immediate postpartum period go, and anything else from that time that you want to share?
So my immediate postpartum was, um, like I was just tired. I didn't have like any huge mood swings. I was very fortunate. Like my hormones have always been pretty stable. And so I didn't expect anything crazy. However, in those nights that you're not sleeping repeatedly, like that's when it starts to take a toll, even in just little things. Um, and you can't take things out on your kids. So you take them out on the people around you. And that was kind of like what not started to happen, but what would occasionally happen and what still occasionally happens when we don't get a good amount of sleep. Um, but again, relatively smooth as far as like any type of big depression goes, with breast or not with not breastfeeding, but with like pumping and that kind of thing. I was kind of back on my full normal like cycle within eight, 8 to 12 weeks,
Um,
which was slightly frustrating because I also was bleeding through 8 weeks. And so I never really had like a gap from that. It went from like, oh, I'm going to wear these diapers all the time to now I'm back in tampons and whatever else. So that was not a bummer, but like you kind of want the little bit of luxury of not having those things, but that's okay.
wow. So
Yeah.
how old are your twins now?
They will be 17 months next week, which is wild.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and they were 33 weeks, so like 4.5 weeks preemie for twins. and they are like off the regular charts. Like they left the preemie charts, I think, when they were 8 months old, and have been like in the 90 percentiles for height and weight like since. So they were just ready to come out. It had nothing to do with like being preemie. I don't know. Yeah, they're something. I will say my number one thing for twin moms that I say now is like, do you need duplicates from 0 to 12 months? No. I mean, the essentials, yes, you need 2 car seats, but like you don't need 2 of the same book. You don't need 2 of the same stuffed animal. But oh boy, do you need it from 12 to 24 months, because they want the same thing every single second of the day. Even today, they just follow each other around and see what the other one's playing with, and then take it and then flail their arms because they don't have words yet, and then cry or scream and come to me and then drop it. Like they don't actually want it. They just don't want their other one to have it. And so definitely duplicates after that. Like
Oh
don't
my,
even worry about mixing it up. Get the same book, 2 copies, perfect.
that's so
Um,
funny. I love that.
yes, but I mean, they're good. They're good. And I feel like they 100% respond. Like all kids respond to your energy. So like if we're starting to get stressed, I notice them getting fussy. And if we're calm, they're calm. I mean, it didn't stop us from traveling. We've been to Texas with them. We've been to Florida with them. It doesn't stop us from like going out to dinner. And I think the more you do those things that you want to do as a family, like the more they're used to it. Are they going to cry? Yes. Sometimes they're going to cry. Like that's just how it is. But I mean, we go to Target, we run errands, like you just kind of got to do your normal day-to-day thing, and then they'll eventually kind of move into it. But ear infections are not fun, I will say that.
Ooh, both of them at the same time?
Oh yes, we are
Oh,
on the docket for tubes.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully relief is in your future and
Hmm.
fewer ear infections. So,
That would be the goal.
wow.
But yeah, so I mean, not anything too crazy, but I feel like that's kind of the nice thing with like from a twin mom is a lot of twin like support groups and Facebook chats and stuff. You see not the negative, but just like the scary. Like I remember always seeing like my twins were born at 24 weeks, or you know, like the trigger warnings of like I lost one of that, like that kind of stuff. And I know that it happens and it's like sad and you need to share, and I 100% like support that. But I think it's important to see that babies can be born at 33 weeks and completely thrive.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else, Mara, from your pregnancy or your delivery experience or your postpartum experience that you want to touch on that we haven't yet covered?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Thank you, Mara, for sharing your story, and to our viewers for watching. If you have a birth story you'd like to share, visit www.birthhigh.com and click Share Your Story. We'll see you next time.